Pledge of Allegiance.
Bring you greetings on behalf of Cottage Hill Church. We also have a campus in downtown Mobile. We pray weekly for you. Teddy Roosevelt said, in a position like yours, you not only need to be honest, but brave and wise. And so I'd like to pray these virtues over you this morning. Heavenly Father, we first stop this morning to thank you for your abundant blessings. We thank you for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance, for friendship. We thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and to really for the bearing of these great responsibilities. We thank you for the freedom to embrace you or to reject you. We thank you for loving us even so from your gracious nature. In your word, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, that you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. So therefore, this morning, we pray for these in this room today, for our city officials. And we're asking you that you would grant unto them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times. We pray for a sense of the welfare and true needs of the people, a keen hunger and thirst for justice and righteousness. We pray for courage and strength to do what is good and what is fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. We pray for personal peace in their lives and joy in their work. We pray for the agenda set before them today. Give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our great city of Mobile. And we pray it in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Roll call. President Small.
Here.
Vice President Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Penn.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll. Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Daves.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Statement of rules.
And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's good to see everyone on this beautiful Tuesday morning. Welcome to our meeting, May 10th, 2022. At this meeting, we do have rules. At this time, I ask if anyone has any type of electronic device, please put on the off or the vibrator position at this time. The off or the vibrator position at this time. Any person desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, the ordinance, appeal, or public hearing agenda item before entering the meeting. When addressing the council, the speaker must state his or her name and address. Any person desiring to speak to the council on a non-agenda item must contact the city clerk office no later than 2:00 p.m. on the Thursday prior to the council meeting. The subject that he or she wishes to express to the council must be identified and pertain to the city of Mobile business. Any person who has not given proper notice to the city clerk office and wishes to speak on a non-agenda item would not be allowed to address this council. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the council. A bell will sound to indicate the end of 2 minutes. 1 minute remains for summarizing. The second bell indicates that your time has expired. When addressing the council, there is to be no personal address to any individual council member. All statements are to be made to the chair, who will recognize any council member who wishes to respond. To maintain decorum, we ask that there would be no undue applause and or public outcry allowed. Madam City Clerk.
Approval of minutes of April the 26th.
So move.
Second.
We properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Communications from the mayor.
Good morning. It's a full house. Good to see everybody here this morning. Yesterday there was great news in the city of Mobile with the announcement of Airbus adding a third final assembly line to increase the production of the A320. It was just slightly less than 10 years ago that the first announcement that they would come to Mobile to build the 320. So it was very fitting that almost on the 10th anniversary they make this announcement, which will essentially double the production capacity. that changes the critical mass of Airbus in the city of Mobile. And by doing that, the long hope for that there would be suppliers come to this area, I think that you will now see that come to fruition. This additional production the plane should start flying in 2025. This announcement yesterday was held in the presence of many of the students that are enrolled in a special course to be future Airbus employees. And as the various speakers addressed these individuals, they assured them that their future, Airbus's future, and the future of Mobile as it relates to Airbus is very, very bright. So a huge day, a lot of people involved in making that happen. We thank the governor, the county commission, state delegation, and so forth. So a very big day. Speaking of a very bright future, we have a group of individuals here. They're going to be representing the city of Mobile at the Special Olympics down in the Special Olympics, and they will be leaving for Orlando on June 4th to compete at the national level. So all of those individuals, please rise if you would, and let's give them a big round of applause. So thank you, and good luck to each and every one of you. We hope that you all bring back a gold medal, and when you do, we'll stand and give you a bigger round of applause upon your return. So good luck to you, and God bless you. So I can see that you're excited. We are too. In the area of historic preservation, the Historic Development Department has four special events coming up celebrating National Historic Preservation Month. The first one is tomorrow, May 11th, where Ben Raines will be giving a presentation about the Clotilda. It will be held at 5:30 p.m. At the Ben May Public Library. In the area of Parks and Rec, this Friday's Art Walk. And returning to Art Walk for the season is going to be Roll Mobile. All you that don't have your roller skates, get them, strap them on. Shonda will be leading the charge. And if I look out there in the crowd, if I see some of y'all on roller skates, I'll go get mine, okay? Okay. Also in Parks and Rec, and I think I'm not sure this is not new or not, maybe it is, about the National Photography and National Pets Month. So if you have a pet and you come to Cathedral Square during Art Walk, we'll be taking a portrait of you and your pet. So we hope to see you there. Also, this Saturday begins the return of Saturdays at the Coop. This will be featuring country artist Brandon Blackburn. It will be this Saturday from 7 to 10 p.m., so hope to see you there. I have several proclamations to read this morning, and in essence of time, for those who've submitted proclamations, we may not read every last word on that proclamation because the work that your organizations do is very extensive, and for us to try to cover it all will take just a lot of time. So please, we apologize ahead of time for the abbreviated form of this. But my first proclamation, I will read in full because it's very special. And I would ask Eva Golson to please meet me at the podium. Eva, if you can join me at the podium. So, Eva, this proclamation reads, whereas Mrs. Eva Golson has faithfully served the city of Mobile and our state for over 50 years, beginning as a volunteer at the Mobile Chamber of Commerce in 1968, and whereas Mrs. Golson's illustrious career includes serving as the director of the Communications Department for Public Works, director of Fort Condi, director of Tourism and Special Events, and director of the Mobile Film Office. And whereas, in her role as the director of the Mobile Film Office, she is directly responsible for hundreds of television and film productions in our state, solidifying Mobile's position as a filming destination and has helped in the growth of hundreds of careers in the film industry, particularly as the champion of the state's film incentive. And whereas she has been recognized through various positions of honor by the Southern Public Relations Federation and the Public Relations Council of Alabama, as being recognized as an honorary lieutenant governor aide-de-camp for the state of Alabama and a Kentucky colonel, and whereas her demeanor, geniality, and spirit have endeared her to the hearts of many, including governors, film producers, executives, and certainly mayors, now therefore I, William S. Stimson, the 108th mayor of the city of Mobile, along with the members of the Mobile City Council, do hereby recognize the unparalleled and distinguished service of Eva Golson, and hereby recognize May 10th, 2022 as Eva Golson Day.
Oh, thank you. I want to thank you very, very much. I really appreciate this. It has been a great pleasure and a joy indeed to represent Mobile especially, but the whole state. But you know, I invite everybody to come to L.A. when I'm working because we're in Lower Alabama. We'll keep it going, but we have a lot of people now in the film family, and we will keep up with the industry and making more movies here. And I told them that they've got a new director now. Tommy Feld will take over, and we'll be happy to help with anything we can to keep it going. But thank you so much. It's been such an honor to work with the city and the state of Alabama.
Thank you.
For those of you who have known Eva as long as I have, you know that she has been involved in so much throughout the city, the state, and certainly traveling the country. One of her very dear friends and former colleagues is Patty Culp. She is the CEO and president of the Alabama Travel Council, and she has written a letter that I told her I would read in Eva's honor. So, Eva, I know you weren't expecting this. Dear honorable members of the Mobile City Council, it is with great pleasure that I share with you my professional and personal relationship with Eva Golson as we celebrate her retirement. Eva and I have worked together and served together since 1977, when I was hired as the director of the Alabama Travel Council, and she was the director of Fort Condé. We've served together in many boards and committees throughout the state and the Southeast, and we've lobbied the state legislature and Congress together. We've traveled all over the country promoting Alabama tourism and the film industry. Eva has been the recipient of so many awards, like the mayor has just read many of those, with the Alabama Travel Council's first Award of Excellence winner in 1987 and again in 2004. She was presented the Dorothy Hardiman Spirit of the Southeast Tourism Society in 1992. She was on the board of PRCA and was Practitioner of the Year in 1980. And she was inducted into the Alabama Tourism Hall of Fame in 2004. As director of Fort Condé, she welcomed thousands of visitors to Mobile, and Eva was always considered the perfect hostess for the familiarization tours, and she hosted parties for the Alabama Governor's Tourism Conference and tirelessly served on the planning committee for both of those, along with the legislative tourism reception for many, many years. For more than 25 years, Eva and I were the torchbearers for the later school start legislation, and those student jobs that ended early in the summer that year and lost revenue during August were just totally devastating to Alabama's economy. But some good news here. The influence that Eva has had in the film industry has put Alabama in the minds and hearts of many, many filmmakers. She worked endlessly to pass the film incentives on the bill and works hard today to protect those incentives. The economic impact for Mobile and Alabama is profound. Eva's local, state, and regional service has been endless. She served on the Alabama Tourism Advisory Board, Taste of Mobile, Alabama Gulf Coast Reef and Restoration Foundation, the ASF Foundation, Rapid Rail Commission, Mobile Press Club, Mobile Council Navy League Board, and she was chairman of the Southeast Tourism Society. I'm out of breath just reading all of these, Eva. She was also instrumental in starting the Mobile Pop Symphony. In addition, she served as the Alabama Travel Council president and is still a devoted member and past president, chairman's council today. Whew. Eva is known as the Grand Dame, am I saying that right? Grand Dame? Grand Dame of tourism and film, and she has promoted Mobile and Alabama as tourist destinations and film locations since 1968. She's a true professional and a very dear friend, and quite more like a sister than just a friend to so many as well. And this is from Patty Culp, again, who is the president and CEO of the Alabama Travel Council Incorporated. And we also have one other thing, because Eva has been so involved in the film industry and tourism and travel. What better way to celebrate Eva than for thousands and thousands of visitors to learn about you when they enter the battleship. So this is a proclamation, not a proclamation. It is an award that will hang in the battleship. It says, in honor of Eva Golson, Moving Mama, a true celebrity in the film and hospitality industry. Thank you for 50 years of commitment to the city of Mobile and your spirit to serve. And this will be in the battleship, so the people will see this when they come in. So thousands of visitors every year will see this.
How nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Eva's daughter, Carolyn, is here. Carolyn, stand up. And then we have many of Eva's friends who are also here, some working in the industry today, and then some of her good friends. Y'all stand. Everybody stand up. Who's here on Eva's behalf. Let's get a picture with you holding your plaque. All right, and here is your proclamations. You can take this home, and I actually have a copy of. Yeah, we'll keep that because we have to put it in the battleship.
Okay.
So that will stay
Thank
with
you.
us to go to the battleship.
Thank you for everything.
And then this is the letter from Patty.
Thank you
So,
to everyone for everything.
congratulations, Eva.
Congratulations.
Eva, there's several things that many of us will remember. One is your enthusiasm is unparalleled, and your smile is absolutely infectious. So thank you. God bless you. So at this time, I would ask Ann Chapman, Law Day Chairman, and Ann Sermon, the Executive Director, and Raymond Bell, the Vice President of Law Day, if y'all would please come down and join me at the podium. And the proclamation reads, whereas for more than 230 years, the government outlined by the U.S. Constitution as main representative government based on the rule of law, and whereas over the course of American history, the American people have made changes to their government, including formal amendments to the U.S. Constitution to fulfill the promises of the framers and our guaranteed rights, and whereas the United States has overcome great challenges in its history, including a civil war, two world wars in the 20th century, global pandemics, and periodic economic depressions, and whereas the theme for Law Day 2022 is toward a more perfect union, the Constitution in times of change, we encourage all Americans to consider and pursue the roles that we all play in helping the United States achieve a more perfect union. Now, therefore, I, William S. Stimson, the 108th Mayor of the City of Mobile, do hereby proclaim May 10th, 2022 as Law Day in the City of Mobile. Congratulations. And so, who wants to make a remark?
On behalf of the Mobile Bar Association, we thank you all very, very much. We're very excited to have May 10th this Law Day, and we just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
So the next proclamation is about Mental Health Month, and I would ask that, Connie Ewing, Tasha Jones, and Mary Clark, please join me at the podium. The proclamation reads, whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas all Alabamians experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas stigma leads people to avoid living, socializing, or working with, renting to, or employing individuals with mental illnesses, and individuals living with mental illness often internalize the stigma that exists in our culture, damaging hopes for recovery. And whereas with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen have an opportunity to help create a broader understanding of mental health, overcome stereotypes, break down barriers, eliminate stigma, and replace it with help and hope. Now, therefore, I, William S. Stimson, the 108th Mayor of the City of Mobile, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Mental Health Month in the City of Mobile. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much. As a representative of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, I want to thank you all for recognizing May as the Mental Health Month. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This time I'd ask Jim DeLapp to please come introduce the employees of the month.
Okay, good morning, and we'll be brief, but we have 3 individuals from the Public Works that we would like to recognize as our employees of the month. The first one we'll start with is, we've got from our Parks and Rec Department, and I'll let you do the Parks and Rec here. Oh. Okay, well, we'll have Engineering Department. So Nick Amber is going to come down and speak about our Employee of the Month from our Public Works at Large Department.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce the Public Works at Large Employee of the Month, Grace Toledo. Grace is an engineer within the Engineering Department. She's been with us for 4 years. Grace has had a pretty good month. I mean, great to hear that the city's had a pretty good day yesterday. But when I go through this here with you real shortly, you're going to find out Grace and her family has had a wonderful month. In addition to being a civil engineer, she's actually got a master's degree. She manages our floodplain, part of our floodplain management program. She's a key component of our ADEM MS4 program and keeping us compliant with there. And she also reviews and approves land disturbance permits. Grace recently found out she passed her PE exam, her professional licensure exam. She's also recently found out she's a new U.S. citizen. She passed her licensure there. And I think the icing on cake, she's also found out she's going to be a new mama. She's already a mama, but she's going to be a new mama real soon. Grace's attitude is infectious to our department. I mean, she represents the younger part of our department. Wonderful engineer, wonderful with the people that she engages with, and Grace, we're just so very fortunate to have you as an employee.
It's such an honor to be here. I remember when I started here almost 4 years ago, like Nate said, the engineering department opened the door for me to be part of their team, a team that have helped me through these years with open doors and willing to share their knowledge. So I'm standing here today is because of them. So thank you so much to the engineering team. And this actually motivates me to keep working hard because I think that the major goal here for the people that work for the city of Mobile is to make Mobile better. Thank you.
I will have Matt come down and speak about our Parks and Rec Employee of the Month.
Just speaking for our Employee of the Month for May for Parks is Darius Dunnigan. He, just to speak of his character, carries himself. He has a voice for himself and also the crew members. He's always looking out and ahead for them. He's a great team member. Again, he's not only looking out for himself to make things right, he's looking out for his crew as well and all the Parks Department. He's been a great leader since he's been promoted to the position he's in now. And when he's out, tremendously missed. It's apparent when he's not there. So I'm just proud of him, and we're happy that he was able to get this.
I just want to say it's an honor, and I appreciate this here dearly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we'll have Dexter Johnson speak about our Public Services Employee of the Month.
This morning, I'm here to speak of one of the employees in public services. His name is Michael Smith. He's been with the city a little bit over 5 years this second go around. He works in our flood control division, which is one of the most labor-intensive divisions that we have because they maintain ditches that flow behind houses, behind businesses, between businesses. A lot of time we have areas you can't get machine so they have to pull that stuff by hand, wheelbarrow it out. We are proud that he's taking a leadership role in the division, and we're proud to speak of him today for working for public services.
I'd just like to thank y'all and say I appreciate it. We really don't get really good looks at being the smaller people, and I really appreciate it.
Colonel DeLapp,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tell him his job is a big hand, with many citizens when they call about their dishes. So trust me, you got a big job, Congratulations.
Another comment that the vacant seats here are due to some vacations, but also Director Batiste and Chief of Staff Jim Barber attending a public safety conference over at Gulf Shores. I'd also say that my schedule calls for me to be at the military appreciation lunch. I'll be leaving in about 35 minutes. Anyway, that concludes my remarks, Mr. President.
Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is adopted.
Appeals. Today is the appeal of Cameron Kinney regarding the ARB's denial of his application to install vinyl windows at 1657 and 1659 Conti Street.
The appeal. Now give us your name and your address, please.
Paul Beckman, 104 St. Francis Street, Suite 300. Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've got a packet of photographs I'd like to hand you relevant to this project. We're here today appealing the ARB's denial of an application to allow the replacement of windows in this project. I'm going to tell you briefly about the project and then explain to you why we feel that the board abused their discretion in denying this application. This piece of property is on Conti Street, approximately 2 lots off of South Monterey. It is bounded by the north by the Little Sisters of the Poor complex. Further to the west, you've got some single-family residential dwellings. This is not your typical Midtown street where the houses were constructed in the early 1900s and have significant historic value. This is just a little bit different. Number one, you've got the multifamily structures we're here about today, which is on page 1 of the packet. As you can see, they're fairly plain buildings. The building was built in the 1950s, we believe. It is a non-contributing structure under the design guidelines. You can see the current windows are steel casement windows on all 4 elevations of the building. If you look at page 3, this is the view directly across Conti of the Little Sisters of the Poor complex. And then if you flip through a couple pages in to page 6, this is an example of a house that's 6 or 7 doors down. Not your typical quintessential Midtown house. Appears to be built in the 80s or 90s with vinyl siding and vinyl windows. So that gives you a little bit of the flavor of the neighborhood. My client purchased the property in 2018 with the intent of remodeling both interior and exterior, has proposed replacing these steel casement windows with single-hung, vinyl, impact-resistant, energy-efficient, easily operable windows. The initial application called for replacement of all windows. After meeting with the staff, they decided to leave the original windows on the primary facade, which faces Conti, and replace the windows on the other 3 elevations. Christine Dawson and the ARB staff recommended approval of this project. The project went to the ARB. They ultimately denied the application, apparently because of their concerns over the material of the windows, which is vinyl. So looking to the standard is basically for the board was to consider whether the change, which would be the windows, would have a material impact on the architectural or historic value of the building, the buildings on adjacent sites, or the general visual character of the historic district. We believe the board abused their discretion in denying this application for 2 reasons. Number one, there are a number of other multifamily projects within historic districts, and I've documented them for you in photographs, where similar windows have been approved. For example, page 4 and 5 is the Russell Church building on Broad Street. This is within the Oakley Garden District. These are aluminum windows in this project. And as you can see on the second floor, the design there, which is a 6-pane over 6-pane window with a transom above, is identical to the design we're proposing in our project. If you continue to flip through, and there's other photographs of residential dwellings with vinyl windows within historic districts, but page 12, this is a Mike Rogers project on the corner of Texas Street and Charles Street. Again, incorporates new vinyl windows. Page 13, this is a project at Government Street and Chatham Street. Again, multi-resident, multi-family building with vinyl windows in Oakley Garden District. Page 17 is at 1105 Selma Street. This is actually another property that my client is renovating. It's been approved by the ARB for incorporation of vinyl windows. The last photo you have is the Storage Max on Government. Again, Oakley Garden District with vinyl windows. And there's another project that's not photographed, also located on the corner of Broad and Augusta. That's another project my client's undertaken. Again, approval of vinyl windows. So to the extent this project was denied, we feel that denial would be arbitrary, which would be an abuse of the board's discretion. And going back to the elements of what the board should have considered, number one, do these windows materially impact the architectural or historic value of this building? Well, this building's non-contributing. It's a very plain-looking building. Incorporating white single-hung windows with a 6-pane over 6-pane design is consistent with other construction within the district. There's nothing unusual about a white 6-pane over 6-pane window. So visually, there's no difference here. As far as the other buildings adjacent to this building or in the immediate vicinity, again, this is a unique street. Across the street, we have Little Sisters of the Poor, which apparently doesn't have much, to me, does not have much historical or architectural value. It's certainly not a historic building. I don't know whether it's contributing or not, but I suspect it's not. And then if you move down Conti Street, you see other houses that are not your typical Midtown house. So there's no significant impact as a result of installing these windows on this project. And then lastly, under the standard in the ordinance, is there a material impact to the visual character of the historic district? But that means if you drive by, does this look any different than a historic building might? And I'd suggest to you that a white 6-pane over 6-pane window is something you ordinarily and regularly see within this district and any other historic district. So there's no visual impact there. The board's complaint, I think, is that it's vinyl. But at the end of the day, the installation of that window does not impact the visual character of the district. So it's our position that this denial of this application was arbitrary in that other projects have been approved. And secondarily, it was an abuse of discretion because these changes do not materially impact the district, this structure, or the immediate structures in the vicinity. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Any questions from the council?
I have a question.
Mr. Davis?
Was the proposal by the developer, you speak often of a 6-pane windows. Was that what the developer proposed, 6-pane windows?
It was 6-pane windows, and then in certain locations there would be a transom above the window.
I see some of these windows on the existing structure have transoms.
That's correct.
6 panes and then a transom above.
Yes, sir.
Would the other than what they're made of, what I understand you to say is the developer was proposing to replace the windows with windows that look substantially the same, other than what they were composed of. Is that correct?
I don't want to misspeak. If you look at page 2 of the packet, that's a digital rendering of what the changes would more or less look like. So this is just again, this hasn't happened. This is just a mock-up. But you see the 6 over 6 pane, and then in certain windows you're going to have a transom above it.
Transoms would be on the ground floor.
Right. And I don't want to misspeak, but they may be on the second floor as well. I'm not sure how that plays out, but that's the design.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Reynolds.
On page 1, these elevations that we're seeing, did I understand you correctly to say that these elevations, the windows, were not being changed?
That is correct. The original application called for replacement of all. We revised that to allow the originals to remain on the primary facade fronting Conti.
Okay. Have any windows been replaced at this point on the whole building?
The first, on the right-hand building, the first 4 on the bottom have been replaced to see how that might work.
And in the picture that I'm looking at, are the 4 on the bottom replaced in this picture?
On page 2?
Page 1?
I'm sorry. Page 1, those are all the original windows.
Okay. And page 2, the top photograph, is that the front elevation of this building?
Yes, that's from the street. And I believe that's the left building.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
I kind of wanted to wait. I went by the building a couple times. The size of the windows currently don't match the size of the openings. And where you're saying that there'll be a transom, it's not there. The window's actually pushed apart to the head. And then at the sill, you have a space left open. That's been framed in. So it doesn't appear as if though it's going to be 6 over 6 with a transom. Can you answer that?
Sure. That was an initial installation. The original thought was to bring the sill up so that brick sill would meet the bottom of the window. They've scratched that design. The window is to be moved down to the sill with the transom to be moved up there.
So
that was after discussions with
did
the
ARB
staff.
encourage you to change your design of the opening as it is now?
I believe that design came about with discussions with ARB staff.
The permit for this project, there would have been a red flag waved. Did you go before ARB before the permit or after?
I believe they went to ARB after.
So they didn't get a permit, somebody mentioned it, and then you went back to the ARB.
No, I don't think that's correct.
So you got the permit before you started the job? Because if you would have, then you would have known that you had to go through a process with Windows.
Correct.
So evidently, you started work without a permit.
That's my understanding. They undertook these initial, I guess, test installations to see what it might look like.
Yeah, the type of windows out there are steel casement windows, correct?
That's correct.
The same manufacturer that you're buying the final window from provides a black steel casement or a silver steel casement. matches the existing window. By chance, what was the reason that we didn't, or no one even looked into the value of the replacement window being still casement by the same company that you're buying the vinyl from?
I've not researched that.
Anything else from the council?
One more.
Mr. Carroll.
The staff's report suggested that I think the visible sides be one way and the other sides, the non-visible sides, you could take some corrective actions on it within reason, I think. Is that the mindset of the owner at this time?
Yes, sir. We'd be willing to leave the.
So you want to follow the staff's report at this time?
Yes, sir. Which is to leave the contact street as is and change out all the other windows.
But changing out the windows with the proper material?
With the proposed vinyl windows. Which was my understanding of what the ARB staff recommended for approval. Thank you.
Chris Carmen from the legal department. City would like to be heard on this. Ms. Dawson is here, Deputy Director of Bill Mobile. I'd like to correct a few things that were stated earlier about other properties. Let me ask you, Ms. Dawson, he referenced a storage building that he said had vinyl. Can you explain why that was approved?
I was not with the city at that time, but I have reviewed the certificate of appropriateness for that particular property, and the windows that were approved were vinyl-clad wood. That is what is on the COA, and that is what is supposed to be in that building.
Was there another property mentioned on Selma Street, the apartment development, that you also looked into? Why was that one approved?
The windows approved for that property also were vinyl-clad wood, a material permitted under the design guidelines, and what is supposed to be on that property is vinyl-clad wood, not simply vinyl.
We mentioned the Russell School, which we all know is on Broad Street. Do you know why that was approved?
Again, I was not with the city when that was approved. However, if they are in fact aluminum windows are a permissible window material in historic districts in Mobile.
And I didn't see all the pictures, but earlier I saw a picture and we discussed an apartment complex across Broad Street on the east side. And do you know why that would have been approved with vinyl?
That property is not within a historic district in Mobile.
Council persons, I'd just like to remind you, and Mr. Beckman correctly stated, the standard is abuse of discretion. You created the Architectural Review Board and appointed them. They are experts, architects, developers. You respectfully are not supposed to substitute your judgment today. You're supposed to simply look at what they decided and see if they abused their discretion. And the evidence is that they followed their guidelines in denying this, and they have done it consistently. Perhaps rare examples where they have allowed it. Well, we've determined that the ones he cited and showed pictures of were not, in fact, as he stated, approved incorrectly. They, according to Ms. Dawson, were correctly allowed. They were not inappropriate uses of vinyl. So we would simply say that this developer, he did not even get a permit, as he admitted ahead of time, a building permit. He would have been told this would have to go to the Architectural Review Board. He did not do that. He started the work. He was then, I think, reported by a neighbor and then filed his certificate of appropriateness and went through the steps. The board takes it seriously. They went out, the minutes show they went out and inspected the property. They discussed it thoroughly. They made their decision. And we would simply ask you to not substitute your discretion, but simply determine that they did not abuse their discretion.
Any questions from the council?
Answer questions if
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. What is the written basis for denial by the ARB?
Essentially, it's under Chapter 6 of the design guidelines, which discuss non-contributing properties within historic districts. The board is under the design guidelines, the board can determine if the materials that are proposed are similar to those seen in the historic district. And the board determined that vinyl windows are not similar to those seen in the historic district.
One other one here. So, if I understand you correctly, the visual appearance of the vinyl windows in the area are different than what is being proposed, and that's the reason why the denial was recommended, or by the board, denied.
To clarify, vinyl windows are not seen historically in the district. It's not a historic building material. It came into common usage in the 1980s. It is not a historic material, therefore it is not commonly historically seen in the district.
I just want to raise a point here that the applicant appears to have outlined windows in the area that appear to be vinyl because they're clad with vinyl. And they're proposing to use vinyl windows, although not clad with vinyl, but they look exactly the same as the other ones in the area. And then also the overall visual material appearance of these buildings doesn't appear that it's going to change much. I mean, the paint is really going to change it more so than the windows. So, Mr. President, I make a motion that we side with the applicant here because they have clearly outlined that the Architectural Review Board did act arbitrarily in their consideration of properties that are nearby that appear visually exactly the same as this one. And this project is not going to be materially different than many in the area. Also, the visual character of the building itself does not appear to be drastically changed by installation of these windows. So on those two items, I would say the board act arbitrarily. So that's a motion.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second.
Mr. President?
Is there a second?
Well, there's other
discussion.
questions that I think need to be asked before I can
Yeah, would you
even...
like to take back your motion, Mr. Reynolds, until all the council have asked all their questions?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm curious, and I've got two questions. One is conforming versus non-conforming. Is the standard the same for non-conforming properties as they are for conforming properties?
The way the guidelines are written, the standard is slightly less constrictive for non-contributing properties.
So in this case, why was the standard, it seems like it may have been held to a higher standard than other non-conforming properties. Is that true or no?
I cannot speak for the board.
The last question I have is, when you look at properties in full in that area and the requests that have been made to the Architectural Review Board, have there been properties, what's the likelihood of somebody obtaining a variance from the codes that you have set forth in the ordinance to allow them to have a change to that? What's the percentage that you've granted to this point? Do you have that on hand right now?
I do not.
Mr. President.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you. Contact Street, that block. First of all, this building came before me, I think, either 10 or 12 years ago with some of the same problem. At that time, it was also a non-contributing building. Also, the houses on that street from corner to corner, maybe one, I don't think any. There's a brick house, vacant lot, another house. I don't think any of them are contributing to the historic character of the neighborhood. Across the street, the Little Sisters of the Poor is also a non-contributing building to the neighborhood. The problem here was, again, the process where the owner did not procure a permit before doing the renovations or corrections to the building. That was unfortunate. The question is, there was a compromise offered by the administration to the owner that the viewable sides would remain the same with the proper material, and that the non-viewable sides could be changed with a different type of material. My question to legal is, could they go back to that recommendation?
It wasn't really an offer of compromise in that sense.
Staff recommendation.
The staff simply reported to the board that the staff would recommend the application be approved. It wasn't a compromise. It wasn't a back and forth. It was simply the application itself called for the windows on the front street to remain original and the vinyl to be along the sides and back.
You mean
the staff said we can live with this basically, and the ARB doing their duty to apply their guidelines uniformly to all citizens and all owners. They said no, we're not going to allow it.
All right, so simply what we have here again is the owner taking action before there was any guidance given by the ARB.
That's definitely.
Right. Being that I represent the district in District 2 and have done this for a long time, it's unfortunate that it's a non-contributing building. I'm going to ask that the council uphold the decision of the ARB, and then at some point, I guess this will go back before you guys if the decision is upheld, and then there can be some corrective action taken at that time with the decisions of how many of the windows will remain the same and how many will have to be changed. I think that'll be it's a win-lose, but it's the best way to go about this. That way we do not destroy the integrity of the ARB. We also don't lose the covering fabrics of the neighborhood and the contributing sources. Mr. President, I move that we uphold the appeal to the ARB.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Days.
I think this is there are arguments on both sides of this, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced based on what I've heard that the ARB abused its discretion, and so I'll be supporting the motion.
Any other discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I did withdraw my motion, so this is an appropriate motion. I find myself on the other side of this one. That there's plenty of evidence here to support that this was an arbitrary action, and that the ARB acted beyond its scope here, and could have used a little more discretion with regard to the items that were outlined by the applicant, which are that visually the way these things appear in neighboring properties are going to appear exactly the same as they will appear on this new project. And then also the visual character as illustrated on page 1 and page 2 of these windows that are present prior to the repairs and the ones that are after are going to be generally the same in appearance. And so a little additional discretion, I think, should have been applied there. So I will not be in support of this.
Mr. Archer.
Yes, sir. I think the intent of the motion is just to affirm the decision of the ARB.
Yes.
So if we could just tweak the language of the motion to just say that.
Mr. President, I move that we affirm the decision of the ARB.
You didn't have to take the first one back. That was good, correct?
Yeah, we just corrected the language.
Okay. Properly moved to second. Another discussion.
Mr. President,
I'm sorry, Mr. Jones.
just one more thing. Look, to me, it comes down to did the homeowner or the property owner do the right thing? And they did not. You know, had they gotten the right permits and then gone through the process, I think the outcome from my vote would have been different. But because they did not, I think that puts them in a different category. And I'll be voting along with my colleague, Mr.
Mr. President, it's the same here. There are a set of guidelines in the process through permitting to prevent this type of situation. And if we continue to let that happen, then everyone else is going to start to do the same thing and then coming back as an afterthought. So that's what's governing the decision here. I wish it could be at a better place and time, but that's what's governing the decision.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
6-1.
Mr. President,
Yes,
may I make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
In the city of Mobile as a community, we love our historic buildings, and we're very fortunate to have the ones that we have. And we have the ARB, we have the Planning Commission, we have the City Council, you know, who are all involved in a process with appeals and so forth if we have opinions that we don't get rendered like we like. But one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that with the no longer having lead paint, no longer having the virgin pines or the heart pine, the heart cypress, or the heart redwoods, which did not rot, with those species no longer being available for our windows and our siding, as technology improves and as window developers, you know, come up with other ways to build products, and as siding manufacturers come up with siding, we need to figure out the ways to embrace those things. Because yes, in a perfect world, if we had the materials, we would want things to be replaced exactly like they were. But with the shortage of materials today and the shortage of manpower and the skill carpentry type stuff that we have, you know, we have to find ways forward so that it's not such an encumbrance or a burden to people who are trying to maintain our houses. So our encouragement really, and this is encouragement to the ARB, to those that want to renovate the houses, and the Planning Commission, City Council, we all have got to be able to embrace some new ideas and to make sure that we can continue to preserve these houses. So, thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Request for waiver of the noise ordinance on May the 20th in Cathedral Square, May 21st in Bienville Square, May 21st, Cooper River. Oh, I want to skip that one, excuse me. October 29th in Cooper Riverside Park, May 29th in Arlington Park, and July 23rd in Melvana Park.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Bill passes.
Okay, request to for a waiver of the noise ordinance on May 21st in Cooper Riverside Park, and this is the one door to Serenity. I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. We're good.
Yeah, but you didn't call that. We didn't vote on that. You didn't call that one out.
I did. May 21st. May 21st in Cooper Riverside Park.
So moved.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
It's just a little chilly in here. I gotta look. Public hearings. Today is the public hearing to declare the structures at 2410 and 1417, 2410 Cone Street and 1417 Tampa Drive, public nuisances and ordering them demolished.
This is the public hearing for the said properties. If anyone present that would like to address the council, may do so at this time by coming down to the podium, stating your name and your address. If not, the public hearings are closed.
Public hearing to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to L&L Express to operate a sedan service.
This open up this particular public hearing. If anyone present that would like to address the council, you may do so now. Coming down to the podium, stating your name and your address. not, this public hearing is closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Matt Green and Mary Palmer.
My name is Mary Palmer, 4209 Aldebaran Way, Mobile, Alabama, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Boynton Oak. It's interesting that today is the day of the murder of Nathaniel Frost, so-called attributed to Charles Boynton. Boynton Oak is Mobile's oldest and most famous legend. After publishing my book, and this is the book right here, the story of a 19-year-old Charles L. Boynton hanged in Mobile in 1835 for the murder of his best friend, I discovered many reasons he was treated unjustly. He had 2 unqualified jurors. All was based on circumstantial evidence. There were 2 deathbed confessions. So I founded the Boy Oak Society and wrote a play, The Truth is in the Tree, and it was produced 3 times, Gulf Crest Museum, then 2 other times at Oakley, and the last year was the first annual Boynton Oak Festival. We will have the second annual Boynton Oak Festival, May 14th and 15th, this weekend. The story was also in Lanyap, and it was the cover stories, and some of you may have seen it. Charles said an oak tree would grow on his grave site in a Church Street graveyard to prove his innocence. It did, and it still stands today, almost 200 years later. With the help of the House of Representative Victor Gaston and Senator Chris Elliott, HB 104 was passed, removing obstacles to a posthumous pardon for Charles. And now I've contacted the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and they are reviewing it again, and they're reconsidering the pardon. It's never too late to correct an injustice. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. This would benefit collateral descendants that we found, and also it would be of great interest to prominent Mobilians such as Palmer Hamilton, whose great-grandfather was, great-grandfather was the minister who counseled Boynton in Mobile's first jail, which is now County Charlotte. Okay. May 14th to 15th, we're having this second annual Boynton Oak Festival at Oakley. And I have flyers here I can leave for people who are interested. Thank you very much. I didn't know how to distribute them. Okay. We've gotten about 100 signatures asking for this pardon, and we've gotten several grants from different sources, so we're hoping that this will be an annual event. We have Dr. Thomas Rowell directing it.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Palmer. Is it possible that you can also send that to our city clerk office through a PDF also that we can share? I appreciate you so much.
May it please the council, Mr. President, thank you all so much for having us. Today is actually the 188th anniversary of the murder of Nathaniel Frost. 100 years ago, any school child or person that lived in Mobile knew the story of Mobile's probably the most notorious killings here in the city. It happened right down the street at Church Street Graveyard. A young man by the name of Nathaniel Frost was found brutally murdered under a chickapin tree. His roommate, who took care of him, was soon found to be a suspect. He fled the city, was captured north in Claiborne, about 100 miles away. He was brought back here for a quick trial. The trial was perhaps too quick. He was brought in shackles and put in the city jail at the County Charlotte House. He was shackled there until his trial. He did not have very good representation, but he did have representation. There was a significant rush to judgment among the time.
But what perhaps doomed the fate of Charles R.S. Boyington was the fact that there were three things, really. His conviction was largely based upon circumstantial evidence, and perhaps probably two of the most important things that doomed him in the eyes of the public. He was from Connecticut in 1834, and also he was an atheist. And in the time leading up to the trial, the media at the time really whipped up public sentiment against Boyington. The evidence was scant at the trial. At the time, it was initial appearance before the preliminary hearing, the trial judge was called to remark, or said to remark, that the evidence was scant. He couldn't see how their conviction could be had. Nevertheless, the state moved forward with the prosecution, and many of his defense witnesses were beyond the jurisdiction of the court, surprisingly, when court came to trial. There were two jurors who served on the grand jury that were argued to be incompetent. One was an alien, non-U.S. citizen, was I think from Britain, and the other grand juror was said to have remarked and proclaimed Boyington's guilt before any evidence was heard. So those were two appeals. Ultimately, he was convicted. The Alabama Supreme Court, on appeal in a 2-to-1 verdict, sustained the conviction. He was shortly brought to trial. He was shortly brought to execution. He was marched all the way out to the time, they called it Buzzard's Roost, which is now in Washington Square. It was a carnival-like setting. Thousands of people were in the street. The hanging was botched. He tried to jump off the scaffolding. The militia grabbed him, threw him, wrapped the noose around his head, and the hanging failed. Several other people jumped and pulled on him, and it took nearly 30 minutes to execute him. It was a botched, and it was probably one of the worst executions the city has ever seen. Subsequent to his conviction, 12 years later, there was a deathbed confession from a third party. And there was another confession after that. So there's perhaps the most seminal moment in this case, excuse me, and I'll end it with this. The most seminal moment in this case, when Boyington, moments before he was hung, they asked him if he had anything to say before sentence of law was executed or imposed. He was quoted as saying, "Sir, I'm innocent, and I'm innocent, but what can I do? When I'm buried, an oak tree with 100 roots will grow out of my grave to prove my innocence." That oak tree is on Bayou Street, and thanks to Mary, there's a plaque to remember it. And this Saturday, they will do a reenactment of it. And it's probably one of the most interesting stories of Mobile history that I think it's lots of lessons to be learned from it. But many people have forgotten, and I hope y'all won't. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Jones.
Yeah, just Matt and Mary, thank y'all for coming down. What I wouldn't say a cool part of Mobile history, but all history is really neat. And that is a very interesting story. I look forward to seeing y'all this weekend, and I hope all of you here will invite others to go attend and learn more about this. Thank y'all for coming and presenting.
Marvin Liu. Following Marvin Liu is Katie Herndon.
Good morning, Brother President, City Council members. Brother Carroll, we thank God for you. Marvin Charles Liu Jr., pastor, lead servant and proclaimer, Stewart Memorial CME Church, 1252-1268, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Mobile 36603. We are in an interesting time in our city when it comes to what's on the front page news. For months and months and months, we were dealing with gun violence, murders, and deaths that just sprang up on our televisions, sprang up on our cell phones, moment after moment, second after second, day after day. Right now, we are in the midst of what some would call a calm. Not so many reports, not so many headlines, not so many rallies, not so many RIPs, not so many Saturday afternoon parades dealing with gun violence. That leaves us in a dangerous place because of the fact we do not want to suffer from the out of sight and out of mind mentality. There must be, there has to be. It is demanded by our spirit and our community that we remain conscious about community safety. We are being blessed with new business ventures that are taking over our city and making us step up to the plate and receive resources like never before. But they will mean nothing if there is no workforce. And that workforce will come from our communities. But if our communities are not guarded, if our communities are not protected, if our communities are not cared for, then we stand to lose more than we will gain. I'm asking you to join me as a gatekeeper of all 7 districts of our city, as a gatekeeper to your own families and friends, to stand with me that we continue to push forth this issue of community safety. And finally, community safety is not just dealing with the shots fired at Lad People Stadium. The community safety is not just dealing with drive-bys at McDonald's. Community safety begins in this chamber because all of us own a weapon. Because the Bible in which I use says the power of life and death is found in the tongue. I would ask you that as we continue to be models for our city and for our citizens, that when we address one another, when we share with one another, no matter our opinion, that we remember our words have power to give life or to bring death. And if one Mobile is to be real, we ought to be in the life-giving business. Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to say, Pastor Lou, I believe that all 7 of us, I believe I can speak for all 7 of us, we on your side. We get tired of hearing, different stuff that's going on in the streets. And I asked the administration, but our public safety director and our chief of staff is out of town this morning to address some of the concerns of what the police department is actually doing. A lot of the stuff, as we hear, is not just random, it's retaliation. And the question is, how can we get to the bottom of it, to stop the retaliation? Who can answer that? I don't know. And that's something that we need to really to find out, try to get to the bottom of why is so much retaliation? What more can we do, to stop all the retaliation on the streets? I mean, I'm not a person that's out there every day on the street, so I cannot tell you that. The experts, they out of town on the conference, but you're gonna take all of us, really just to really roll up our sleeves and pretty much and just ask them, why so much retaliation? What can we do? Just not just someone else or just administration, but we as the city. What can we do to keep us from killing each other? And that's a question that we, I have, and I mean the others have too, because whatever I can do more, besides just pumping money after money to the public safety, I will, because again, one life is one life, too many that's lost. I mean, we had just had a grand announcement yesterday, 1,000 some jobs coming to Mobile and plus more. But I don't know how to pretty much just get them excited enough to say, hey, let's go to Bishop State, let's, go to AIDT, let's go to school, try to make your 6 figures, and that's something that we really need to figure out. How can we get the mentality of them to change as far as getting excitement about opportunities in ahead that's for them and everything. So, I mean, I do appreciate you coming down and bring that to our attention, and I continue to do that because that's something that we do need to do, is figure out what can we do to get excitement to most of the youth, a lot of the youth, and let them know that it is tomorrow besides guns.
Mr. President.
Mr. Dave.
Thank you, Pastor, for being with us today. I think, my own opinion is that we have a good deal of information or knowledge about why we've ended up where we are. And a lot of this crime is being done by young people who have lost faith in their future. And for a lot of different reasons. But we know things. We know that the critical point for a young person, particularly young men, in their schooling is in 9th grade. We know that if you can get them through 9th grade and get them to stay in there, then they're probably going to make it all the way through. 9th grade is a difficult time. I had a difficult time when I was in 9th grade. But if you can get them through 9th grade and get them to graduate from high school on time with some skills they can use by going to work. And I think a lot of this stuff can be prevented. Getting them to stay in school is the difficult part. And that's going to require a joint effort by the school system, by the municipal government, by the city council, by the parents, by the faith-based communities. It's going to require a lot of effort. But the really impressive thing, though, is each one of those kids you can get is a life saved. And it's something we all need to be focused on. I certainly don't have the perfect solution for how you do that. I do know it's going to take a lot of people working on it. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who is very much involved in workforce development. And the fact of the matter is that we have in this city, we are very fortunate, we have in this city a number of places you can go to work with a high school education or maybe some additional training and make good money. These jobs we're talking about out at Airbus are some of them, jobs at Austal are some of them. If you stay in school and become an automobile mechanic, one of the biggest challenges that faces our auto dealers is that their mechanics are aging out, and young people are not coming into that work. But you can make good money being an automobile mechanic. There are ways you can make good money with a high school education if you stay in high school and finish it and get some vocational training. But thank you for being here today with us. It's very important to continue this conversation.
Mr. President. Really, just 3 minutes, Rev. But I would want to say this, though, Rev. Continue to advocate, but not just here in the state and in the federal, because I'm a firm believer of this one particular gospel song. You know, they took prayer out of the schools, and nobody want to obey the rules. And since they took prayer out of the schools and nobody want to obey the rules, what else is going to happen? So continue to advocate.
My time is up. I would love to respond just to Councilman Days, but I do understand the rules of the rules of the hour.
Appreciate
Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Penn.
Pastor, thank you for coming down. You make a valid point that we can't stop talking about these issues. You know, recently, I mean, I work with young people 24/7. You know, not just with the Boys and Girls Club, but I go into the schools. I was just at a school that's not in my district. It's not about district. It's about citywide, speaking to young people. What I realize is that we have to come together. The problem is a lot of times we're trying to put a fire out and it's only one group doing it. But the city, faith-based groups, the school system, we have to come with a plan. We need to really, and I don't know if we have one. Just to be honest, do we have a strategic plan as a group together to figure out how can we solve these issues? And I'm glad that you're here because we need to continue to talk about it, but we don't need to just talk about it. We need to do something about it. So thank you so much for coming.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, just I look at the title of what you present to us, and one thing just keeps jumping out at me, and that's community safety that you talk about. And I think back just a couple of weeks ago when a community failed to indict a shooter in a stadium that put a stadium in harm's way. And there's a reason for that, and it's called fear. And I've watched fear drive communities. I've seen it here, and I've seen it in the Middle East. I've seen it in many, many places. And what we lack and what we have got to continue to work on every hour of every day is building the trust between our communities and our police and our protection services that are in those communities. We've lost that. We've lost that community service. Our communities should know the names of the officers that are patrolling those areas. They should know how many kids they have. They should know, what those kids in those communities like to do. They should be playing ball in the streets together. We've lost that. And because we've lost that, we've lost a trust between the community and those who provide protection for those communities. We have got to continue to double down on those efforts. Like the president was saying, we're pouring tons of money into this problem. Money is not going to solve it. It's going to take the hearts and souls, because bad people will exist. We will never change that. They've existed throughout the course of time and will exist throughout the future of time. But the one thing greater than one bad person is a community of great ones. And we can overcome as long as we stay together. Thank you for coming down. I'm in this with you. You know I am. And I look forward to us working together to make this city stronger so that we can truly make this a city people want to come and be a part of. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you,
Mr. President.
Gary.
Reverend Lou, this is part of what I call stopping the bleeding. There's no trust without hope. And hope has to be restored not only at the adult level, but at the age of innocence. You know, we have to help provide an environment where our kids are free to roam the streets like they used to, free to intermingle, but also are educated on the de-escalations and the causes of harm and violence. But also it has to include every other part that we just talked about today. Education, religious value, neighborhood strength, has to have all of it. And until, like Corey said, we have a clear, comprehensive plan that involves everybody, that's not fragmented, then I'm afraid that the hope that we want the youth to have, to where they don't tell us, and I know you heard this, I don't care what I do, they're not going to listen to me anyway. They don't care how we live or think over here. So I've got to get mine now, the best way that I can. My mother had a term for that, and I know some of y'all heard that before. It's called hook or crook. They've got to get it the best way they know how, and in turn, it leads to emotional responses that sometimes turn to violence. But as a community, we do need to form behind you, I think, and other groups that have started with Adrian and Stand Up and everybody else, but formulate some kind of plan where we get everybody in the room and see what we can do to restore hope and then trust and have our kids building solid foundations.
Thank you for letting me know that the issue is still on the burner.
Katie Herndon. Following Katie is Shalila Dowdy.
Good morning. My name is Katie Herndon. I reside at 205 DeSales Avenue in District 1. I come before you again today to address the ongoing issue of redistricting. Here we are, 5 months after the mayor submitted his map, and still not a single member of the community has spoken in favor of it. To the contrary, the community presented alternative maps, and now the administration has decided without explanation to push annexation along with redistricting. It appears from conversations at the committee meeting and other comments at city council meetings, the main concern of certain council members is not achieving a just district, but instead, who will be in their district. To those council members, you know who you are. I ask this: is the council going to act in your own interest as elected council members, or are you going to act in the interest of the voting citizens of this city who have made it crystal clear what we want? Annexation has never been in that conversation. Look, we can talk all day long about how to grow a city, things like accessible transportation, quality of life, employment opportunities, diversity. In short, a city that people want to live in. But that conversation is for another day. What we are required to do right now is to draw voting districts which reflect a Black majority in compliance with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Since the conception of Mobile, our Black brothers and sisters have been denied an equal voice. We now have the opportunity to repair our broken system. To that end, the Southern Poverty Law Center, a nonprofit organization who are committed to the advocacy of civil rights and racial equality, have graciously come to our city to help us do the right thing. These consummate professionals were met with disrespect from the mayor's chief of staff and even hostility from a council person. Why is this simple and small change to the district line so hard for some of you when we hear week after week what this community deems fair and just? Why are you afraid of change? Go to any thriving city. Guess how they got there? Change. Mobile has to stop the mentality of we've always done it this way. Let's not be distracted. Combining annexation with redistricting complicates a simple issue, which we are legally required to do. It has clearly been presented as quid pro quo. This is not about political deal making. This is about justice, and justice is your first responsibility as council members. This scenario further delays justice to our Black citizens. Annexation is not required, redistricting is, and just to be clear, we aren't going anywhere until this is done and it is done right. I want to end with a quote from Brian Stevenson, founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative. Somebody has to stand when other people are sitting. Somebody has to speak when other people are quiet. This community is standing and speaking for justice. It is now up to you 7 to stand and speak for justice. And also, I'd like to add, if you want to gain trust in your community, then you should pass these community maps that have been presented. Thank you very much.
Shalila Dowdy. Following Shalila is Reverend Brian Johnson.
Good morning to the City Council, Mayor's team, Office of the City Clerk, and those in attendance in today's meeting. I am Shalila Dowdy, and I reside at 1008 Barber Drive, Mobile, Alabama 36617. I'm here to discuss the federally mandated ongoing redistricting process and why it should not be combined in any way, shape, or form with annexation. The process of redistricting in itself is rather complex and confusing to the average citizen. I myself know that members of the council do not fully understand the process. Do you know how many census blocks are in the city of Mobile? Do you know how many census tracts are in your district? Do you know how many citizens are in a block or a tract? To mix that process with annexation takes away an element of transparency. I say all this to say that if you do not fully understand the process, as I know we are all learning, how do you expect the average citizen to understand it while mixing it with annexation? It gives off the appearance that something is not being done in the best interest of all the citizens of Mobile. How is it that we are currently in the process of redrawing and readjusting current district lines to make sure that our districts are fair and proportionate to the current population, but at the same time aiming to extend the lines? The mixing of the two makes no logical sense. I would like to understand, what is the rush in the process? The current administration has more than 3.5 years in office. That is over 1,200 days left. Instead of trying to camouflage annexation under the gaze of redistricting, it should be done at a separate time. Last week, we had an individual elected by the citizens of Mobile, who is a member of the Administrative Service Committee, have the audacity to say, I'm not attending the meeting because I do not want to discuss redistricting if we do not discuss annexation at the same time. This gives off the impression that this individual does not want to do the job that they were elected to do and instead prefers to put self-interest above the interest of the people. I hope our citizens are taking note and watching how all this is playing out. Additionally, there was a comparison made where those outside the city limits who desired to come in were compared to the foot soldiers of the civil rights movement, my ancestors who were lynched and beaten because they fought for the right to vote, which was centered around voting for people and fair representation, not a vote for an invisible line. That was disrespectful to the movement, especially when in reality, if someone truly wants to live within the city of Mobile, what's stopping them from moving into the city limits? In conclusion, I want to emphasize that redistricting and annexation are two separate processes and should not be combined or discussed together. Take the community maps into consideration. I know that they are being redrawn and will be represented. Look at the community maps. Review the statistics, because some members have not even done that. And listen to the people who have been coming down here and utilizing their voice to make sure that they are heard. I also need you all to think about, why hasn't anyone came down here and laid out the facts on why they support the mayor's map? Thank you for your time and the opportunity today.
Reverend Brian Johnson. Following Reverend Johnson is Trevor Woolridge.
Good afternoon. Brian L. Johnson, 409 Lexington/A.J. Stokes Avenue. I'm here to speak about redistricting and the coming annexation effort. These goals should be to
bring citizens of our city together to ensure the best path forward, not to divide. 2020, I'm a millennial. We do research, and so we like to research the material. 2020, the U.S. Census showed that.
Excuse me 1 second, sir. Could we stop this, man? Could we close that door, please? I do apologize for that. Go ahead and start his time.
As a result, the 2020 U.S. Census showed that Mobile is a majority Black city. This data makes it clear that these communities too often has been overlooked, have no representation in their city government. I believe Dr. Martin Luther King talked about this in 1965 as it relates to no taxation without representation. Over the past years, the effort has been to disenfranchise Black citizens and their rights to be represented in many forms. We've seen violence, we've seen intimidation, we've seen poll taxes, we've seen literacy tests, and much more. As a result, Congress has established the Voting Rights Act. This law dictates that you must ensure all our communities are represented through the redistricting process. I believe it is our moral duty to do the right thing, but your legal obligation. The new city council map approved this body must include a 4th district that allows the Black community the opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. Any proposed annexation effort must also reflect the majority population and not seek to dilute it. Thank you.
Trevor Woolridge. Following Trevor Woolridge is Reverend Bobby Brown.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the City Council. Trevor Woolridge, 354 P.H. Lewis Place, Mobile, Alabama, 36603. After viewing the committee meeting broadcast, I've come today to speak on behalf of the Community Coalition, which 2 months ago presented each of you and the administration with proposed alternative redistricting maps. This diverse coalition of community groups, leaders, and residents from across the city came together to develop these maps after the one proposed by the mayor failed to meet the legal and moral obligations of the city. Unfortunately, the mayor's map, even after at least 8 revisions, failed to include a 4th district, which allows the Black community the opportunity to choose this candidate or a candidate of their choice. So we've engaged a group of experts to help develop some alternative maps that do finally provide adequate representation for all of our citizens. We very mindfully and deliberately engaged them to create fair maps that provided our city the best opportunity to move forward united. We provided them the map drawn by the mayor, the administration's information regarding the councilperson's residence, and even discussed with them neighbors likely of key importance for each district. These maps, as you know, are just slightly different from those presented by the mayor, only with a few minor changes to not dilute the power of our Black citizens and in doing so be compliant with the Voting Rights Act. We appreciate the opportunity of them to be discussed at last week's committee meeting, although we were disappointed that there appeared to be an effort to derail the meeting. Since the beginning of this process, we have been promised transparency, community involvement, and discussion. While watching the meeting on the recorded broadcast, a council member indicated that if a group of persons were moved from their district to another, they may not feel represented. My paraphrase of the comment gave me pause and great concern. I was under the impression that constituents in every district would have representation doing their best for their entire constituency. Thus, given the history of this country and this state, the African American community must remain vigilant in these matters. In a previous presentation to this body, I urged that your discussions publicly and privately would give us assurance that we can trust you in the room. The future of our community and our city depends on us getting this right. The decision is yours, whether we continue to be plagued by this divisiveness or head down the path of progress. We urge you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Reverend Bobby Brown. Following Reverend Bobby Brown is Tony Hoffman or Terry Hoffman.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Bobby Brown. I reside at 3651 Winline Court. I'm here to speak on redistricting again. I'm going to bring some dates up to you. I want you all to think about the dates as I go through. December 7th, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. President Roosevelt declared this as a day of infamy. March 21st, 1981, Michael Donald was lynched in Mobile, a day of infamy. September 11th, 2001, Twin Towers in New York was attacked, a day of infamy. January 6th, 2021, D.C. insurrection, a day of infamy. January 18th, 2022, Mobile County City Councilman debated the need for another black city council person, a day of infamy. June 2022, City Council is to vote on redistricting. We pray that this city council votes on redistricting. We pray that this city council will vote to reflect a city council that shows the redistricting of the current majority and not a political annexation to change the racial demographic of this city. Thank you for letting me speak.
I'm sorry, I can't understand your handwriting. It's Tony Hoffman on Dolphin Street, 5 Dolphin Street, regarding resolution 4282.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Hoffman. I'm here to speak about 6401 Pinehurst Road. I reported to the council twice before as where we are. As you recall, I'm the county administrator, general administrator for Mobile County, and this is a piece of property that was been identified for potential demolition. I just wanted to let the council know where I was on that, which is it's currently set for a petition for sale of real property to be approved by the probate court of Mobile County, and once that's done, we'll be able to close the sale and the remodel of the property.
Any question from the council? Okay. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Reggie Hill regarding resolution 6395 through 399, 01, 370, 08, 373 through 375, 08, 377 through 378, 31, 389, 21, 410, and 6420.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, citizens and stakeholders of Mobile. Good afternoon. Reggie Hill, 1007 Center Street. I rise to address those matters that were just reported. I'll begin with 60-395 through 60-399. Is there any reason that these determined appropriations, which are proclaimed to serve, excuse me, a public purpose, won't pass with unanimous consent? As well, is there anything that would prevent these organizations from receiving the allotted funds before this time next year? Basically, will it take more than a year to cut the checks for these organizations? 01-370, is the Mobile Public Library being charged to rent vehicles from the city? There's just a little confusion. I didn't have a response in the packet. 08-391, 373 through 375, 08377 through 378. Between this and last week, we've seen more than $1 million on this agenda for vehicle purchases alone. I understand that no one up here has a vehicle inventory list. I want to know, why is there not such a list accessible to the public? And if there's something in preparation, how long will it be before that's available to the public, and how can we access that? As well, we know that the budget is a living document. So we must find resources, or if we're able to find resources for these type of matters, I want us to use the same enthusiasm with the other pressing concerns that we're seeing in our city. We can move resources around for that, and I think we can do the same for other pressing concerns. 31-389. What will the resources be used for, and how does the city plan to prevent school violence through partnership with the Mobile County Public School System? Are these resources designed to fund activities that will be hosted or organized by the Youth Violence Prevention Coordinator who was appointed with ARP funds? Just want some type of insight on what's being done with that, because I believe some people have raised some very important points about youth violence in the community. Now, I disagree with most of the sentiments that we don't have a plan. It's just a matter of if you want to work with the people who have data-proven initiatives in place, and that's something that you have to work with yourself on to do. 21-410, we each know that we are losing nearly $500,000 annually with the convention center. So please help us to understand while we're potentially spending $830,000 today, what are the mechanical upgrades being made based on this contract? And for time's sake, 60-420, to my understanding, the Voting Rights Act, which was passed in 1965, was the intent to enforce the 15th Amendment, stating that the right of citizens of the United States to vote should not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition or servitude. I don't have the time to get into this, but there were some legal matters that were in place, and I think we don't have the full scope of what's going on with this, so we'll address that next week. Thank y'all so much for yielding the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Ordinance is held over. 64027, rezone property located at 93, 95, and 97 North Sage Avenue from R1 to B2.
Salute.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Pass.
Consent resolutions held over. 40282, declare the structure at 6401 Pinehurst Run a public nuisance and order it demolished.
So move.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I've had conversations with both the gentlemen that we heard speak here and with your Mr. Doffenbaugh, and it's our concurrence, I think, overall, that we go ahead and move forward, approve this with the understanding that hopefully that will put some leverage on the courts to get this moved through and sold. But we will not take any actions that are not transparent to the gentleman that spoke earlier, and make sure that we work with him in concert to try and get this resolved to the best of all parties.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pass.
Resolutions held over. 01317, authorized vehicle leasing agreement with Mobile Public Library. 08373, approved purchase order to Stivers Ford for Ford pickup trucks for various departments. 08374, approved purchase order to Just Foyer for installation and subscription for public records management software. 08375, approved purchase order to Gulf Coast Truck and Equipment for Mack Electric garbage truck. 08376, approved purchase order to Shark Tech to repair, replace police boat fender system. 08377, approved purchase order to Beard Equipment for John Deere Progator utility vehicle. 08378, approved purchase order to Jerry Payton Turf and Irrigation for 3 club car utility vehicles. 21379, authorized contract with BFI Waste Services for dumpster service at various city locations. 21380, authorized contract with Butler Complete Services for landscaping maintenance at Mobile Museum of Art. 21381, authorized contract with Secord Enterprises for rights-of-way mowing. 21382, authorized contract with Moral Contracting, doing business as Advanced Service Plus Plumbing for plumbing maintenance and repairs at various city facilities. 21383, authorized contract with Evergreen Solutions for a compensation and benefits study. 21384, authorized contract with Community Security Services for unarmed security guards at various city facilities. 37385, consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Taylor's House of Camellias to operate a shuttle service. 386 and 387 are authorizing settlement agreement and release of claims.
So moved.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Ordinance is being introduced, 61028.
By council rules, these will, or this will lay over for 1 week.
Mr. President?
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, we didn't discuss this at pre-council, but I mean, being that the ordinance is already passed and this is just street corrections, is there consent to allow this to go today?
Problem with it, if you don't want to waive the rules?
Ms. Vice President, if you'd waive the rules in the standard procedure, would be great.
Well, I will. That's why we were going down the line to make sure everybody was okay. Move to waive the rules in order to consider this ordinance immediately.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Rules waived.
61028, ordinance to amend Article 11, Chapter 61, Traffic of the Mobile City Code entitled Low Speed Vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask the council's attorney to read the names of the streets that would be affected.
Right. So just so everybody here is aware, this doesn't change the nuts and bolts of the ordinance whatsoever. It's just adding some streets to the exclusion list that weren't ready to be selected at the time we did this a couple weeks ago, which are Bel Air Boulevard, Cottage Hill Road between Grant Street and Sage Avenue over there behind the mall, Downtowner Boulevard, Grelot Road, Knollwood Drive, Lloyd's Lane, McVeigh Drive between Bolton's Branch and Halls Mill, and Michael Boulevard.
Another discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ordinance passed.
Consent resolutions being introduced, 31388 through 6402.
Move to waive the rules for immediate consideration of these resolutions with the exception of 37-390 and 58-394.
Second.
Properly moved and second. In discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk.
31388, authorize a grant, 31388 and 389, authorizing grant applications to the Bureau of Justice for the fiscal year 2022 National Sexual Assault Kit Initiative and for the office, the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community Oriented Policing Services, COP School Violence Prevention Program. 37391, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a lounge retail liquor Class 2 package store license to Spring Hill Liquors on O'Shell Road. 392 and 393 are declaring the structures at 2410 Cone Street and 1417 Tampa Drive public nuisances and ordering them demolished. 395, 396, 397, 398, and 399 are determining appropriations to Scarborough Model Middle School, Dog River Clearwater Revival, 3 Mile Creek Partnership, Summer Place Subdivision Homeowners Association, and Mobile Alumni Chapter Kappa Alpha Psi serves a public purpose in approving payment. 60, 400, 401, and 402 are approving award of special bonus to Parks and Recreation, Public Works at Large, and Public Services Employees of the Month.
So moved.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Resolutions being introduced 08403 through 6420.
For council rules, these will lay over for 1 week.
Call for public hearings. 41421, call for public hearing to rezone property located at the northwest corner of Cochran Causeway and Dunlap Drive from R1 to I2 and I2 to I2, scheduled June 7th. 41422, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 1248 Mont Lamar Drive and 3500 Michael Boulevard from R1 and B3 to B3, scheduled June 7th.
So moved.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is called.
Announcements.
District 4, Councilman Reynolds.
Very briefly, Mr. President, this is a reminder on May 25th at 6 p.m. at the Azalea Road Complex. We will have a District 4 community meeting to discuss 311 process, public safety, redistricting, and the future growth of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. District 6, Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just want to remind everybody about the Boyington Oak Festival happening this weekend. Should be a great event. Another huge thanks to the city administration and colleagues in the state about the Airbus. You know, it's truly, when you look at the dynamics, and if you were there yesterday, you saw about 40 young men and women that had their future changed because of this announcement, and now they have a foundational opportunity in aviation manufacturing that will present them a career in a very secure, well-paying field. 1,000 jobs. Where are they going to live? Where are they going to go? They're going to go probably either across the bay or to West Mobile. Why? Because that's where the housing availability is at this point. The gentleman that spoke and said that annexation is political and it's to change the racial demographics has got this all wrong. Annexation is about the very hope that we talk about. It's about the very excitement that we see with this city. And it's about giving the opportunity for additional revenue. That's what yesterday was: hope, change, possibilities, unlimited possibilities for everybody in this city. And that annexation is a part of that as we grow and we see these corporations grow. That's exactly what this is. And we'll get into more of that. I'm not going to belabor the points, but this has nothing to do with racial demographics. It has everything to do with the hope of the city moving forward and bringing in other people that want to become a part of this great city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. On last week, we was planning on having our community meeting at the Dodge Community Center, but because the AC units are out there, we're planning to reschedule. So you'll get more information about rescheduling our community meeting in Trenton Gardens. Also, I want to thank the promoters and sponsors for bringing the No Limit Tour here to the city of Mobile, to Ladd Stadium. It was a great turnout. Everyone had a great time, and that's our goal. We want to bring more entertainment to our city. So again, thank you to all the sponsors and promoters who put that event on. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. District 2, Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight at the Via Center on Dolphin Street, also known as Mary Abbey Berg, we continue to have our, I call, whirlwind of district meeting tours. We will meet there at 6 o'clock to discuss the various interests that are going on in the city and anything that may interest you. My meeting is open to everyone in the public who'd like to be there to discuss any issue with the city, all members of this council, if you're interested in what's happening in District 2. And anyone else that chooses to join us to learn anything about the city. Again, to follow up, the event at Ladd Stadium was extremely a great event. I think it went off with no incident, which proves that we can do many things in our community when everybody's working in the same direction to make great things happen. Look forward to additional things happening at LAD over the next year and possibly two. And thank you to all of you that are in District 2 that are lending a hand also to these neighborhood walks, these night walks, and other things that are going on to deter gun violence. Look forward to seeing everyone tonight, 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. District 5, Councilman Davis. All right. Vice President Gregory, District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things. I want to thank the Mobile Fire and Rescue Department and the American Red Cross, along with all of the volunteers who came out on Saturday to do a blitz installing smoke alarms throughout neighborhoods in my district. It was a great opportunity to meet with some of the families. The Red Cross volunteers also spoke with the residents about escape plans in case of a fire and in case of tornadoes. So it was just a great day for everyone, and just thank you so much to those who did come and do this, the fire department and American Red Cross, as well as the other volunteers. And another note, if you would like to have a smoke alarm installed in your house, the fire department does this regularly. Saturday was just a blitz. They go through certain neighborhoods and do a blitz, but they have an ongoing list and do installations on a regular basis for free. And if you would like to get on that list, it's 208-5555. And just a note, we should have announced this earlier. Many of you already know that Vic Knight died recently. A lot of folks knew him because of his involvement in sports. He was most recently the general manager over at Ladd Stadium. He has been involved in the Senior Bowl and was recently named to the Sports Hall of Fame. So just wanted to let everybody know about Vic and his passing, and just really, really sad. Vic was a terrific guy and had been involved in things related to sports in this city for just many, many years. So our sympathies and condolences certainly go to Vic and all of his family.
Thank you, Vice President, and we'll have a moment of silence next Tuesday for him and everything. We do have a committee as a whole, committee as a whole for the UDC. It's scheduled for 1 o'clock. We will postpone it until 1:15, delay it until 1:15. So that give us enough time to wash up and do what we need to do and come up back downstairs. Anything else from this council?
Yes, Mr. President. I've got so many things going on. The meeting tonight is at All Saints. VIA is next week. All Saints tonight at 6. Again, that's All Saints on the corner of Government and Ann Street tonight, 6 o'clock.
Anything else from this council, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we'd just like to wish our council president a happy birthday today. Hope you have an awesome day.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned.